Hey, what's up you guys? Bart here coming to you from TST Industries in Florida. Boom, we got ourselves a Honda CRF300L. I've already had some fun on this bike, already had some fun wrenching on it. Gotta say, I wish sport bikes broke apart the way this thing does. It's so easy to work on. So this video is going to be very, very easy on you guys. We'll show you how to install the TST Industries LED signals on the rear of this bike in place of these incandescent light bulb units that come from the factory. Now these are huge, they're heavy, and they're kind of suspension mounted, but if you whack something out there in the trails, chances are these things are coming off. And they're pretty expensive to replace. So we have nice replacements for you right off the bat. Here in front of me, I have 3 different models that we offer. This is the ARO18. It has 18 LEDs in a capsule that looks like an arrow. It is mounted via a 10mm stud. Here you see the BL6 signal. We use 6 super bright SMD LEDs on board, firing through a nice sophisticated lens array. These are available in a choice of clear or smoked lens, and they're slightly more minimal design, but they pack really, really intense brightness. Here we have the Echoes. These are CNC aluminum body anodized, and they feature a nice accent ring here, along with some laser engraving to give them a little touch of class. They do come by default from our store with a silver ring. If you guys choose to have a slightly different accent ring, they are available in red, black, gold, blue. We have several different colors. Check it out on our website. It's just a little upcharge and you get them in your hands, swap them out to whatever you like, put them on. All these signals are actually going to mount the same way on the bike. So I'm just illustrating what we have in stock for you here on the table, and I'm going to choose our BL6 to mount on the bike. The physical installation is actually the same. All of our signals terminate in 3.5mm bullet connectors, males on the signal side. This is sort of standard across the board. If you guys are getting a different signal set, not TST Industries, but you are taking advantage of our harness converters or any of our other mounting features, you can still use our video to mount your stuff to the bike. We don't mind. We're just happy that we can help you. All right, like I said, 3.5mm bullets on all our different signals, same on all the other signals out there that I know of. Here's the cool thing. Female bullets on here connect yellow to yellow, black to black, and on the other side they terminate in a factory style connector. Now on this particular bike, the connector is split into 2 different connectors. I will show you how to combine that into one, make it nice and neat. Pretty easy. We'll get into the details of that. All right, one last thing. Physical installation requires that the giant hole in the bodywork that is left behind from the removal of the signals gets closed out and converted to a little stud hole. We do have the appropriate converter set that we sell as a separate module, or you could buy it as an entire rear lighting, rear signaling bundle. Choice is yours, no worries. When you go away from using the incandescent light bulbs that were designed into the signaling system on this bike, like you see here, we already have the front LED signals mounted. This bike will go into a condition called hyperflash. This is because we are drawing much less current than the factory estimated the proper current draw should be, and the bike's trying to alert you that, whoa, something's going on that's not normal with your signaling system. Well, it is normal because we are just trying to go with LED signals. So one thing that will have to be done if you want to combat this hyperflash is the replacement of your flasher relay. Here I'm holding the Gen 2 flasher relay from TST Industries. There are other ones out there on the market. We feel like ours is probably the best unit, best bang for your money. It's a simple plug and play replacement, same plug, same hanging mode as the OEM's signal relay. And then in addition, we offer the ability to vary your flash rate. If you slip off this cap, you can vary that flash rate via a little adjuster. That is a separate video that we have shot and we have available on our website and YouTube channel. Check it out there. That is a separate component. It does not come with the signals. Some people may have a flasher relay. Some people may not care about fast flash. So we don't really bundle them together. You can opt to purchase that along with the signals or not. The choice is yours. Now, I'm all spun up here. I just want to start wrenching on this thing. Come on, follow along. Let's get started. In step one, we will be removing the seat and also the top of the tail here. To do that, we will remove these 4 fasteners. They require a 6mm Allen. They do have shoulder washers underneath them. And the washers do differ from the fore and aft location. Please make sure to keep track of that for reassembly purposes. Silver looking taller one in the front location. Black, shorter one in the aft location. Once the fasteners come out, the seat can now be pulled out. We pull it back and in a pivoting motion, that disengages all the hook locks and also this interference lock from the tank. Now the side panels get popped out straight outboard. They do have friction fasteners fitting into rubber grommets here. There's one of them. So straight out. And then this tail would just come up and it has these little pegs here that fit in windows here. So once you dislodge that, it's good to go. Let's get into the wiring here. You can just trace back the signal wires here. Orange is left, blue is right. We'll remember that for reinstallation. Now here, Honda decided to split the positive and negative wires for the signaling system into 2 separate connectors, even though this connector has 2 slots and the terminal within this connector is the same as in this connector. Don't know the reason for that. We're just gonna work around it. My method for this whole installation is to eliminate this connector and move the terminal from this connector into this one. That just makes things a lot neater and enables us to use our plug-and-play harness converters. And that's just a much nicer installation in my opinion. Here I'm lifting up on the locking mechanism for the connectors and that just releases them. Here you can actually push down on this and that'll release it, or you could pry up from the other end. That actually is a little bit easier. We will go through the reconfiguration of this terminal from this connector into this plug here in just a little bit. For now, I just want to go through the removal of the physical parts here. You can see here there is a Phillips head screw that will need to come out. And since we are removing both of these left and right, let's go ahead and ditch those screws right away from both sides. Once the screw is out, there is a metal plate here that we just pull out from the inside, and that will loosen up a lot of the things that we're working on here. There's also a plastic jamming component inside this rubber boot. Once that plastic jamming component and the metal component are out, this will now be able to be peeled away, and one by one we can remove these components through the bodywork. You can actually get these guys out through the connector end, and then the whole assembly comes out. We'll repeat on the left side. So now let's focus on the electrical connection. Here you see our harness converter that will connect our lamp into the bike's harness. This is the connector that is meant to click into here. Our positive wire is yellow here, and it connects to the blue, which is also positive on this side. Now, the ground needs to connect to another wire here. For some reason, Honda separated them in 2 different housings, but they are the same terminals like I mentioned. So what we need to do is extract this terminal from within this connector and transfer it to here. In the meantime, let's get rid of our harness converter. Now, there are specific tools made for unlocking these pins. This is one such tool. I actually don't like using this too much. I prefer a pin or a needle, a sewing needle, a safety pin, or something like that that you have laying around the house or garage will do the job actually better than the tool that I showed you. I will go through this one time, and then what we'll do is slice one of these connectors open so I can show you exactly what I'm doing inside so that you can visualize how to get this done. So let's just grab one of these, unlock the locking tab. Once you pry up on the tab slightly, the pin should just come right out. I like to put a little bit of tension on the wire, but not too much tension. You don't want to rip it out of the crimp. All right, so this takes a little bit of finesse, but no worries. It's not too difficult. Could be a little time consuming, but if you're patient, should be good to go. All right, so here on this connector, we have one open slot left. Obviously, this can either go in this orientation or this orientation. So now I will point your attention to a feature on this terminal. Here you have 2 tabs on this side and only 1 tab on this side. Just spin around and look at it. You'll notice 1 tab versus 2 tabs. Let's go with the 2 tabs down away from the locking mechanism in this connector. Gently slide that in until it clicks, and now boom, that's good to go. We have 2 terminals in here, and we just have to revert this connector to have this in there. But like I promised, I'm gonna slice off a portion of this so I can illustrate to you guys exactly what I just did on the other side. This will enable you to visualize what you have to pry up on in order to release this, this terminal. So for my demonstration here, what I've done is essentially done a cross-section view of the connector that you just saw me slip off. I was working it from the inside of here, and that's this configuration. I put a little bit of tension on the wire, and inside I was aiming to go in up above this pin, come to this feature here. That is a ramping ratchet that needs to be pried up away from the terminal, and coupled with the little bit of tension I have on the wire, it just releases and it will just pull apart. So again, this ratchet needs to be pried up, and that releases the clip from within this window, and that's how you unlock these things. All right, let's get this back in this window. Again, 2 features away from the locking mechanism in this connector. Click, and now we're good to go. Let's go ahead and bring our signals into frame. Like I said, we are choosing the BL6 signals for this installation. Any of the other signals that we offer are very similar in installation, so we don't need to go through redundant steps here. As you can see, there is a TST Industries engraving here. Obviously, we want to have it upright and legible, and that is what will determine which side the signal goes on. So we have our right one. The hardware that is provided is a nut, a washer, and a split washer. For our purpose here, we are not going to use the split washer. Let's actually remove all this hardware for now. Get rid of the split washer. I'm going to bring our mounting kit into frame, show you the contents, show you what we will be using, what we won't be. We have 2 of each of these components. There's an outer plate, there's an inner plate, and a washer. Technically, we could stack up the inner plate and the washer. You know, let's go ahead and do that. Why not? So, outer, inner, washer. Let's go ahead and get these guys all on. Then we have the washer that we just slipped off of the stud of the signal. And the nut. So I have all these guys, all these components already pre-configured on here. I just feed them through. I find it easier this way than working it from both sides. And then we engage the thread. Now, after I engage the thread just a little bit, I don't want to make sure that all my stuff is positioned properly. So the inner spacer is actually made to fit inside this well pretty nicely and have a pretty decent tolerance against the inner well. It won't move around too much. It won't pivot. So it's just, at this point, it's just a matter of tightening the outer in place by preloading the rubber component of the stud. Use a 12mm open-ended wrench while I adjust my signal to be level and parallel to the ground. Also, I want to make sure that my outer plate sort of follows the contours of this bump out here. Now, all this stuff will tend to move around a little bit until you get a little bit of preload on this rubber component, and then friction from that preload will keep everything together and in place. Should you ever kick this signal with moderate force or hit a bush or a tree or something, this does have a little bit of give, along with a little bit of give in this plastic shrouding here. Technically, it should withstand a pretty decent hit, but if it doesn't, they aren't very expensive and you already have all the other components, so you'll be able to replace that at a very inexpensive cost. Now what we want to do is make sure that we have some preload, but we don't want to stress the rubber component too much. The way this is designed to have some give is that we have a metal component overmolded by this rubber, and the rubber is what keeps it all together. If you tension the metal component from within too much with preloading the nut too much, you risk ripping it out. So just get it tight enough so it doesn't rotate, and then just leave it be. All right, let's get our electrical connections going. Like I mentioned before, black to black, yellow to yellow. We do have insulating caps on these connectors. However, they are still pretty free to move around. So what I like to do is grab a little bit of electrical tape and get them locked down. This way they won't slide off, and then you will not be risking a short circuit against ground or against a frame component. I lock down the positive first and do a little bit of a winding across both of them. This also insulates the connectors from water entry. Get a nice tight wind on here, cut it off, and then we'll plug it in. I'm gonna power up the bike. I don't know exactly what to expect just yet. We have replaced both signals with LED signals, and we have no flash at the moment. I'm willing to bet that this is because our flasher relay just won't work with front and rear changed to LEDs. So let's grab one of our Gen 2 flasher relays. The flash going on here. As you can see, for the case of the BL6 signals we have here, not necessarily other signals, this signal in particular, we do need the current provided at an appropriate voltage, and that happens when the generator is running, so we do need to get the bike on. And then we have proper flash rate and proper flash function. So if you guys are purchasing 2 sets, front and rear, of LED signals to put on this bike, whether it be ours or any other aftermarket company, you will likely have this symptom. So make sure that you have some way of curing the flash rate problem, or like you saw here with the 2 front and rear, there was no flash rate. This is a separate component. It does not come by default with the signals. I will just leave it on here because we can't really have signaling on this particular bike without it. All right, so I have one side done. I'm gonna repeat the steps on the left side of the bike. All right, at this point, we just need to neaten up our connections. I think this can be as simple as just bunching up some of this stuff in here, or perhaps in this boot. I think we can just S-fold everything like so. Contain it in here. Yeah, it's looking pretty good, why not? And from this point forward, it's really just a reverse order of disassembly. So let's grab some other components here and give that a whirl. This just goes back into place by aligning the pegs with the windows that we disassembled in the prior step. Then we will need to make sure that these tabs fit in between the plastic shrouding and the frame on both sides. Also, make sure that the red and the black outer is concentric. Black spacer for the back. Let's make sure that this fits in there nicely. Make sure that the actual spacer goes against the frame. If it doesn't, mush this around until you find concentric behavior, and then we'll just get this in place by hand. Same thing on the other side. And then we will grab our seat. Get these panels pushed in on the friction fasteners. The seat will first engage this lock against the interference tab on the tank. Then we need to make sure that these hooks go into their captive geometry. And finally, tabs need to be in between the red plastic and the frame on both sides. And now we grab the bolt with the larger washer, engage that thread and bottom it out, making sure that we are concentric on all of these components. You don't want to get that shoulder washer caught against any other surface except for the frame. So that's the one touchy thing we need to make sure here. This actually does need to go against the frame, otherwise you'll likely crimp the plastic against metal components and distort it forever. All right, that's pretty much it to this whole process. I'm going to power up the bike one more time, make sure we're still okay. And we're looking good. As you can see, this takes just a few minutes. We've used only some basic tools to remove and replace all the components. The results are really, really nice, especially when you've already eliminated your fender and did something like this TST Industries fender eliminator here. So I'm gonna throw a plate on, throw my leg over and go for a ride. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see here, check out tstindustries.com. Got your back. Got some cool parts, come on over. Also, drop us a comment. I like to hear from you guys. Ride safe, see you later.